going to talk, first section is aging and the benefits of exercise as you age. What does that look like? How long should you exercise? How hard should you exercise? Should you do cardio? Should you do weightlifting? What about the rest of your day? How does that look? So we're going to go through a lot of those things, and I love pictures. So I had to bring my graph, even though there's a lot of pictures up there. You know, at least when I thought about aging, I thought about this, and a graph, and this is your age over here, and this is your health over here. And as your age, as we increase, your health goes down and down and down until this would be death right there. And I really wanted to look at aging differently and say, okay, what if you could still age, but you could keep your health the whole time until the very end, and that was death. And this is really what I'm going for. I think most people want to go for this in life versus this. So how do we get this is our first question. And at Orange Theory, we talk about more life, and what does that mean? And for each of you, if I ask each of you, I'm sure that answer would be really different. You know, to some, it might be, I want to see my grandkids get married, or I want to see them graduate from high school. I want to be active throughout life. Whatever that is, that's our goal for you, to add more life. But right now, if we look at the overall state of the nation, how are we doing? Not great. If we look at overweight, it's more than 68% of the U.S. is overweight, and up to 35% is obese. There's a lot of cancer, diabetes, high cholesterol up in there. But if we look, how active is the U.S. right now? Current statistic, 10% of people exercise on a regular basis. And I know that's a lot of you guys, so great job on that, because you're a really small percentage. But then we also look, okay, up to 20% is active, but we're still seeing it's not active enough. So if we had a magic wand and we said, okay, what would cardio, if we did intense cardio 3 times a week, what would it do to those statistics? And when we look, it's going to be significant, 90% reduction in overweight and obesity. If we look at cancer, all of them, I mean, the statistics, it drops it way, way down. So if exercise was a pill, it would be the most prescribed, expensive pill probably ever, because nothing else has those results. So what kind of exercise? That looked at high intensity, okay, 3 times a week. But what else? What if we look at low intensity, moderate, and vigorous? So again, low intensity, this is at Orange Theory, basically going to be your gray, low blue zone. Moderate is going to be blue to low green, and then vigorous is going to be your high green all the way to low red, okay? Just to put it in OTF perspective. And then they looked at how long do you have to exercise there. Option 1, it was a long time, greater than 60 minutes, 7 days a week. Option 2, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And then vigorous, 20 minutes, 3 days a week. And if you look here on the vertical graph, that is going to be the death rate and how much it goes down, how it's reduced. The other part is physical activity. So again, you look at vigorous activity, 60 minutes a week, it almost cuts it in half. Not that moderate doesn't help, but you have to go 90 minutes plus, and it's only 35%. So not as good of a benefit as vigorous. So we're going to look at a few benefits of intense exercise. Living longer, weight loss, disease prevention, and dying faster. And that dying faster, when I saw it, I'm like, what? But it has to do a little bit with this graph. So we'll talk about that. But I know, I was like, is that a good or bad thing? when we look at overall, how do we measure our cardiovascular health, I like this slide because it thinks of it in terms of an engine in a car. And your VO2 max is how much oxygen your body can circulate. And if you have a really good VO2 max, it's an 80, it's your sports car. If you have a 20, it's your junker, and it's not working very well. So VO2 max is typically done on a treadmill. They have a mask. You go through a whole series of exercises to do this. But why does that matter? Why does your cardiovascular and your VO2 matter? It matters a lot because it's the #1 killer in the US for both men and women. And then if we look, every 37 seconds, someone dies from heart disease. So it's something to pay attention to. I like this one because I hear it a lot in here every day. I don't have time to exercise. And this says, what fits your busy schedule better? Exercising 1 hour a day or being dead for 24? And it's a true thing. So when we look at overall lifespan, cardiovascular health is a key predictor there. It's important to pay attention to. So we know that we have to raise that heart rate up. Again, that orange zone is key. We can't keep it super low all the time. You got to push yourself, raise it up. That's how you make the engine bigger and run faster. What about weightlifting? Is that important? Because everybody says, as I get older, my metabolism slows down. Is that really what's happening? And a lot of what's happening is you lose your muscle mass. You lose about 1% of muscle mass a year after 35 if you're not lifting weights. So lifting's really important. You saw how cardiovascular is, but we saw in the research, people that weight train, they don't see the same effects as the muscle loss, the increased body fat, the bone density, because muscle burns more than fat does as far as calories each day. So the more muscle your body has, the more calories it's going to burn. So as you age, if you lose that muscle and it goes to fat, your metabolism does slow down. But if you can keep your muscle, which is really important, it's not going to have that same effect. So what impact would working out 3 times a week, including weight training, have overall? There was really 5 different categories. They broke down cardiovascular fitness too, and it's anywhere from well below average to well above average. And they looked at, okay, you start at 45, so you didn't even start super early here. If you went from the lowest category, which most of America sits in, to the middle category, it added on average 5 years to your life. So that right there, you guys, is a statistic that, like, even if you don't feel like working out, work out anyway. 3 days a week, it's important. But now, if you went from that lowest category to the highest category, it adds 9 years to your life. And that's really important. If you think about those things I want to be there for, and you think about 9 years, all the extra things you could be there for, it's really important. What about disease? Does cardiovascular impact that? And it's all the disease listed out there. It's every single one, almost, that exercise helps. Metabolism. This is another little funny cartoon. It says, no, it's not water you're retaining. You seem to be retaining food. But we look, what happens to your metabolism? And the next screen is one I really like. Because if we look here, this was an OTF study, so this is one of those slides. But if they looked at pre-OTF, an out of deconditioned person, it was 2,000 calories a day. When they started 4.5 miles an hour jogging on the tread at a 1% incline, they lost 10 pounds the first year. But then again, what happens is they started to gain muscle. So their metabolism increases 50 calories a day. They're able to do more on the tread and run at 6.5. So now the second year, it was 20 pounds of weight loss or fat loss there. Here we go with the die faster. the first part is really, again, how a lot of America lives. If you look, it's birth to death, and morbidity is when your body becomes diseased. It probably happens somewhere in 50s, maybe 60s if you're lucky. Things like you're pre-diabetic, the weight really starts creeping on. Maybe cancer shows up for the first time. It's different for everybody, but then you think you see the death part is much longer. That may be assisted living, a nursing home. But then we look, okay, what if you're active? You'll see the disease comes much later in life and the death happens much quicker. And again, sometimes it's like, it seemed like, okay, do we really want to talk about this? But it's inevitable. We're all going to die at some point, and it's just, how do we want that to happen, and what do we want those last years, and really all the years of our life, to look like? So this was an OTF, again, specific study. All the rest has been very broad general research, and it's all documented in here if you're interested in those studies. But this was one OTF did with Dr. Joel French, and they took people and they did 8 weeks and said, okay, if we put them in OTF, which includes the cardiovascular and the strength training, what happens to them? And you'll see their VO2 max went up 12%, base 1%, calorie per minute 1.5, which equated to 119 calories a day. Cholesterol went down, blood pressure went down, 1.5% less body fat, but you'll also see they gained a pound of muscle. Again, that's going to play out. That's where the metabolism is different. But I've sat with a lot of people in the back office, and they've cried at the end of a transformation challenge because the scale didn't change. But you ask, how do your pants fit? Oh, I'm down 2 sizes. This is why. This is why I'm super excited that we have the new InBody machine that tells what's going on inside of your body, so you can see some of these changes, and is that happening? Because in the study, you definitely saw it. But overall, just your mood was 10% better, depression increased, feelings of anxiety. So you can see, and some of you may have experienced some of these things as well. It really made a difference. Any questions there? Okay. Are you convinced that you have to work out 3 times a week yet? You can't really look at the research and be like, nah, I'm just not going to do it. But then I look too at what about the other 24 hours or 23 hours? Because we know you're going to work out, but kind of like you can't out-work out a bad diet, you really do have to think about those other 23 hours, because we're a nation that sits and does this now. I know I'm guilty of that all day long. And so the average person sits 12 hours a day, and it turned out to be the 4th biggest risk factor is just sitting. They equate it now to smoking. But I think what's really important is just mentally, maybe you have an alarm that goes off on your phone. I know for me, again, on days that I'm not in the studio, I probably sit at least 12 hours a day. So what I've started to do after I saw this research about a year ago, is my neighbors probably think I'm straight up crazy, but I am on my phone all the time and I'm walking up and down my block, up and down my block. But it makes a difference instead of just sitting there as much as you can, even if you're standing and not walking. Walking's better, but standing has impact as well. So park farther away, use the stairs, all of those things. So takeaways before I turn it over to Dr. Frazier and Whitney. You need to exercise every week. Whether you feel like it or not, you just have to. It needs to include cardio and strength training. Look at your other 23 hours of the day. How can you take little breaks? Again, you're probably not going to change your job, so it might just be 5 minutes for that hour that you're standing up doing something. But what about the workout? Which workout you do? It doesn't matter, you guys. I know a lot of you are OTF members, but if you weren't, I'd tell you that's okay. There's a lot of great places out there. I hope you come and love OTF forever. But working out is important, and our competition isn't other people, other gyms out there. It's the couch. When you saw the statistics about how many people work out, so whatever workout you do, just do it 3 days a week and do it consistently for the rest of your life.